Hey there, welcome to episode 106 of the FFS Talk audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 12:54 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Thursday, December 4, 2025. We do publish FFS Talk episodes, new episodes on Thursdays, so I think we'll make it. Today's title and topic, certainty, seems to be a timely thing to consider nowadays. Oh, look at this. I totally messed up the date here. Bear with me. 12:04. Today's December 4th, like I said, not September 25th. Who's writing that stuff? So yeah, welcome to today's episode. And if you are not familiar with FFS Talk, it is it's a monologue mostly. Audio essays planting seeds for future discussion. Ideally, we will have conversations, debates, discussions, arguments about any number of topics, about 106 topics at this point. If anyone dares to consider having those, anyone can have any opinion they like, and we can discuss. Could be any number of other topics as well. There are many things out there that work or do not work, and that is the premise. We talk about things that work, things that do not work, ideally around the same topic, and then what we might do about it. So some sort of a constructive conversation where we will learn something. So yeah, the 106th episode today, essentially because I've not actively sought out guests for a variety of reasons, but basically laying the groundwork, if you like. These are also great as receipts in case anyone says that I thought one thing or said another thing. I can say, well, I've been talking about various things for 106 episodes now. So let's go to the tape. But yeah, mostly this is about establishing some initial conversation seeds for the future. I'm hoping that in 2026 we'll start doing a sort of proactive booking effort. So in the meantime, if you're not familiar with what FFS means, it is an abbreviation. It's a common abbreviation for an expression that you will find in places like Ireland, which is where I heard it. If you're not familiar with what it means, I suggest you hang out with more Irish people. With that, hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary and the links associated with today's episode. So let's get to those so we can get through this episode and get on with the week. I don't know if you would listen to this on Thursday. I doubt it very much, but whenever you are listening to this, hopefully you're heading into a nice weekend. And with that, the summary of today's episode. This happens all the time online, more and more daily, but it can happen anywhere and at any time. And it has, and it does, and will continue. The notion of certainty regarding a topic or event about which there is none, or very little. Let me add that. Or very little. There we go. Got to cover the bases. Yeah, certainty. You ever have someone tell you, hey, what time is it? And they tell you the time, and then you're like, that's not the time. And they're like, oh, I haven't looked at a clock in a while. The links for today's episode include the two shameless self-promotion links, the FFS Talk homepage, FFS TALK, ffstalk.com. You can visit that as it's eventually going to be the primary point of publication, which hopefully will survive any Spotify weirdness and so on. So that's where I'm moving to. Is it ugly when you look at this website? Maybe. It's probably very Spartan. Or, depending on when you hear this, it might be deployed as something a little bit more visually attractive. I've mentioned this for too long that that's what I intend to do, but there's a to-do list with different priorities than that. Hopefully when I improve all of the websites for all of my properties, I will get more web traffic and they will all feed back on itself. And I can say that with a certain degree of certainty. I think the word certain appears a lot, and that probably lends some weight to the problem. The profile page linking everything is the buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo profile page. You do not need to spend any money to visit that website. You're not obligated, how about that, to spend any money. You can if you want. You will find some biographical information, links to all of my audio programs, and more. And hopefully those will all be valid forever. But it's nice to have links that are not associated with the actual websites. So an external source of information, another external, a vector, if you like, pointing back to all of my various endeavors. Some links for some of my projects I'm working on, and some affiliate links for things like my favorite coffee beans on Amazon, or I think I have Google Workspace on there and so on. These are things I actually use. I'm not totally thrilled with Google Workspace, but it's on there, or it should be. The profile page linking everything does exactly that. There's also the Buy Me an Update audio program, which is published on Mondays, usually Monday morning. It's available at buymeacoffee.com/danhugo/posts. But then after that, see, that's where the name comes from, Buy Me an Update. But after that, I no longer publish it there exclusively, so it becomes available a short time later through the other usual channels. You'll find links to all of this and more on that profile page. Now the episode links for today, a Dunning-Kruger effect, a Wikipedia page link for that, just so you're familiar with the whole notion. People sometimes speak with confidence about things they know nothing about. Certainly, there is certainty. Now, the certainty Wikipedia page, it's what we'll be talking about today, not the Wikipedia page, but the notion of certainty. And in fact, we'll be talking about subjective certainty, which Wikipedia does describe. But as I always say, Wikipedia is a great place to begin learning about something, but don't end there. But I use Wikipedia all the time. I should give them money or buy them some coffee or something. Ryan Macbeth, YouTuber, former military, still involved with military as some sort of a consultant, claims to be a programmer too, so he's probably, who knows. But Ryan Macbeth has a war crime commentary. He's a YouTuber, so he has a YouTube channel. The thumbnail has war crime on it, and it is about the current state of affairs as of today. No, as of a couple of days ago, actually. Here in December of 2025, or maybe it was late November. Actually, I didn't note the date. That's not what I'm looking for. Anyway, the news of late, and it's something we will look at a little bit here because it's a great example, but concerning the U.S. bombing or strikes on Venezuelan ships, boats, they're actually probably boats, in international waters off the Venezuelan coast. There's been some news has come to light regarding bombing or double tap, as they call it, on some survivors of one of the strikes that has unleashed a huge amount of discussion concerning war crimes. And so I found that Ryan Macbeth, and I don't agree with everything he says all the time, but he does seem like a reasoned and somewhat reasonable person. So he presents a reasoned response to this notion. And at the end of the day, I'll let you, you should watch the video. It is worthwhile and it's very brief. But at the end of the day, as he points out, we don't really know anything. If anyone says anything with certainty, they're probably wrong because the information to form a conclusion or a conclusive opinion simply hasn't been made available. And so we end up with people that are talking out of turn in some cases. I'm getting the video so I can actually see what the runtime is. So it's 15 minutes, and it was published 5 days ago. So figure November 30th. He was heading off to Estonia. Yeah, so Ryan Macbeth, interesting take. End of the day, if you don't want to watch the video, he points out maritime law. He points out the rules, the Geneva Convention, and other relevant to military. So from the military perspective, from maritime perspective. But he does make it clear that you're trying to pass judgment on a video clip that is not the complete story. There's been no testimony, no actual formal allegations. So it's really just kibitzing on the part of news organizations. And it's fine. It's fine to raise these questions, but to draw conclusions before there's been, we're only now getting a variety of official responses. None of them seem to be compatible with each other, but the story is coming together. The fingers are being pointed and so on. So we're at the beginning of the beginning here. It's really difficult to make a claim of certainty regarding the legal disposition of the situation. Morally, I think it's pretty clear. Morally and ethically, the whole shooting at these ships. Honestly, I don't know if they're I think they're drone strikes, but whatever the case, because I know the Navy's involved. So I don't know if the Navy's using drones or if they're just firing from ships, because there's a complement of naval ships down there. Anyway, long story short, we're going to talk about this a little bit today as a great example. It is an interesting video, 15 minutes. Paul Reiser, comedian, has a bit from, did I spell his name right? Has a bit from the 80s, I think it is. Yeah. From the 80s. I don't know. This clip is from the 80s. I heard it live, and it always makes me laugh because it's funny and it's appropriate. There's a different version of the bit. So this is on Letterman. I think he did another stand-up bit somewhere else where he had this, and it's the guy. Like, how do you know this? Oh, the guy. I heard it from the guy. The guy told me. So there's always this credible but unknown anonymous source that provides information for people, and that's the bit of humor that he's doing. So I've set the time. It's 2 minutes in on this clip, and so you can just hear that. It's a bit of funny. He also, the extended bit has something about going, I think he says, have you ever been, you go to a movie and you see a line of people, and so you walk up and you say to the person at the end of the line, is this the line for the movie you want to see? And they say, yeah, that's what they told me. And how do you know that? Well, that's what the guy said. There's this whole notion of like some other authority is either a figure or just a cloud of information has made me aware of something. So the bit is funny to me, and I thought it was appropriate. So there you go. So on with the show. Subjective certainty. If you glance at the Wikipedia article, the first paragraph or two will spell this out. We are talking about subjective certainty here, and quite subjective most of the time. There are some items we may hear or know to an epistemic certainty. Maybe the day of the week in a particular time zone is one example. So the epistemic or objective certainty is the other main type of certainty that is mentioned in the Wikipedia article. And again, you should, if you're interested in that, epistemic, yeah. Epistemic certainty is probably a rarity nowadays. But yeah, if you can say that this is the time zone and this is the day of the week in that time zone, because obviously, if you're on the edge of a time zone, if I say it's Monday and you say it's Tuesday, well, how can that be? And actually, time zone awareness has come up recently regarding the Charlie Kirk murder, about claims made about someone who was in Arizona when they received a message, and oh, look, they're in the time is different. Well, because Arizona is in the mountain, was in the mountain daylight time zone at the time, and Utah was in the mountain. Arizona was in the mountain standard time, and Utah was in the mountain daylight time. So they had sprung forward. How come they're off by an hour? So even epistemic certainty is not guaranteed for such things, but here we are talking about much more complicated even complex matters, and the oh so common rush to judgment followed by the equally common rush to produce content. And that's where things get really interesting, is the size and reach of the megaphone that is available to so many now. So many people who are so sure they are correct, and their audience loves it. This is not new in general. There have been many times since I have been around, at least, surely before, where someone is certain of something and tells others, and then those people they may tell yet more people, and so on and so on. Maybe it's about their shampoo, who knows? And if that first person wasn't quite correct, there are now many people who are quite certain they know the answer to the question at hand because they heard it from somewhere recently, presumably from the guy. But maybe they're not up to date, and now they're all wrong, or not completely right, completely correct, I should say. The more complicated the topic, and especially when there is incomplete information about this complicated topic, the more likely there will be a rush to subjective certainty for whatever reason. Subjective certainty, yes. Whether ego or an ego boost from being knowledgeable by all appearances, right? Oh, I do. Oh, and of course, the first to get the scoop and to publish it, the first to announce something, there's always some cachet associated with that. Maybe to get the word out with good intentions, but incomplete information. So there's a rush to accomplish that, that being first post, or maybe just because whoever is doing it believes it's the responsible thing. Maybe you're trying to warn people about something, a fire or flooding and so on. Maybe to finish a report or publish something, or now to produce a YouTube short or a TikTok video, laying it all out for your audience to again, be in there first, or to publish for your publication on a deadline, or whatever the case. Certainty is easy to find nowadays, but hard to believe for some. So what's the Venezuelan boat situation? And this is by absolutely no means a comprehensive rundown. This is just an example. So hopefully if you listen to this in the future, or if you're in the future and listening to this from the past, this will have been resolved, or it will be easy to track some more information down about this. It's been a few days now, but apparently the first of a series of missile or bomb, I think it's missile strikes, probably from drones, or missiles fired from boats, ships, Navy ships. These strikes on boats, those are actual boats. So Navy ships, Venezuelan boats from Venezuela, took place on 2nd of September, 2025. Those were the first strikes. They've been going on. And while the strikes themselves are already problematic, these are extrajudicial killings, we can take our time on this, of alleged narco-terrorists. That's quite a mouthful. This is all allegedly, so that may change in the future. Some clarity will come about, maybe some investigations, and who knows. This first one, though, apparently had at least 2 survivors after the initial strike on the boat. 2 were visible anyway, and then there was at least 1 more strike on the combined flotsam and survivors, and maybe more. We don't have all the video, we don't have the entire story, and that's what Adam Macbeth was getting. Ryan Macbeth, sorry. I know someone named Adam Macbeth, different person, different spelling. Ryan Macbeth was basically describing this. At the time this episode is recorded, 1 video had been released of the first strike only, and there have been confirmations about survivors and other actions that were taken, but no detail. So confirmations have been from unnamed sources or uncertainty claims, and so some of this has to be investigated. There have to be actual a professional investigation with statements taken, witnesses, timelines, etc. An incomplete timeline and many opinions as this news develops and becomes public into congressional hearings are in the air as I record this. In fact, I believe today the admiral, who's suddenly now responsible for everything, is giving testimony to Congress. So we'll see how that goes. And there was an admiral resigned on September 2nd, and so Admiral Halsey, I think it was. So yeah, this story is very much unfolding. It's very difficult to make any conclusions now, but that doesn't prevent people from doing it anyway. So yeah, if you take a moment to watch that Ryan Macbeth video, initially it appears he's going to jump on one of the bandwagons, but actually, and this is a spoiler alert, which I've already spoiled it, he presents a rather cogent viewpoint that the information available is incomplete and may be specious. It is certainly a starting point, but not a basis to make claims or pass judgment. The rush to declare the sequence of events a war crime, for example, are early. They're very early. Kudos to him, in my opinion, in this case, for sharing a rational and cautious view. On the other hand, every YouTuber out there, even channels, I keep writing event instead of even. I gotta train my pinky. No, my index finger, left index finger. My even channels by new media producers. So these are not just casual YouTubers. These are people that are actually trying to, maintain a new media brand. They probably have a staff, writers, and so on, have, as of today, continued to develop their own takes based on their background discussions with attorneys or military leaders or experts, or, well, who knows, really. These are people often unnamed. The Macbeth take, wait and see. There are some context specifics to consider, but very little information regarding which context is correct, along with the many, many additional details which have not been released. So that's where things diverge. You can say, well, we don't really know anything, but that's not as exciting as, oh, this is definitely a war crime. And that's where things are tending to go. Unless, well, there's, of course, the ideological divide. So some, and it will just say people on either side, whether they're professional news organization, legacy media, mainstream media, new media, whatever, individuals, people like me that are just talking. They may want to make an assertion, and what they claim or what they are backing as far as a story might align with their politics, but who knows? But I think I'm on the Macbeth side here, which is kind of in the wait and see mode. So I think it's not exactly correct to be so certain that this is a war crime, or that this person is responsible, or that this person, maybe these are all true, but we'll find out. Any new media production that is making claims about war crimes and culpability and so on is reporting out of turn, in my opinion, but claiming some degree of certainty, which is sort of the problem. This is probably not a great thing. And I mean, it goes without saying that the mainstream cable news outlets and whatnot are they're taking a position. They are actually, well, depending on which one you watch, they're not being quite so bold, but they're still being a little bit bold about especially the use of the term war crime. I can't remember his first name, but Senator Kelly from Arizona was part of the 6-person video that is reminding military people in the military to not follow illegal orders. And it is, don't follow illegal orders. That's illegal orders. That's part of the military code. What is it? The Military Code of Justice? No, what is it called? Military Code of Criminal Justice? No. But anyway, so he was interviewed, since he's getting a lot of attention lately, and the person interviewing him on, I think it was a cable news channel, said, "Is this a war crime?" And he said, "Well, it's certainly worth investigating." I'm totally paraphrasing, and that's one of the other problems with certainty. But he did not buy into the, oh, it is absolutely, let's convict the person now in the media. Uniform Code of Military Justice. I didn't even have to type that in. It popped into my head. So yeah, the UCMJ. It's good to know. And all this is in there. But if people are not reading that and they're just assuming because they know the term war crime, they're certain they know what the term war crime means, and then everybody else does too. But that's an actual term. It's a term of art, I suppose you could say, but it has legal implications in the Uniform Code of Military Justice and on the international stage. So watching one video may be all someone needs to know, but from a legal perspective, there is a process that really needs to be followed. This hopefully is still a nation of laws, as they say. Well, for the time being, we'll see what happens. But on with the show, the standard format. What does work, followed by what does not, and then what we might do about it. So, what works? Now, certainly, certainty is a good thing, and it is particularly good when it is expressed by those who have a reason to be certain. I wrote a reason to be certainly. I need to fire my writer. Such as subject matter expertise, specific research and academic or maybe professional background that is the basis for their insights, hands-on analysis with these and other qualifiers. And just as important, transparency with regard to uncertainty coupled with attention to detail if new information reduces certainty later. In other words, if the facts change, which became popular in the pandemic era, they're changing their story. Well, because we have new information about a changing situation, a changing level of awareness and confidence in the science as we get more science. So now what they probably could have done better, the CDC, the NIH, the National Institute for Health, and the Center for Disease Control, What they could have been more clear about up front was the source of uncertainty. And they did, if you listened, they were very clear. This is a novel virus. It's new. It's brand new. We have no experience with it. We have no immunity to it, et cetera, et cetera. But unfortunately, the talking heads on the news didn't always do that. So the news people, and by extension, any YouTubers or whatnot, they took certain details that they could understand or that sounded better or were echoing more and made those the basis of their own certainty. There are countless examples where all of this went horribly wrong and people developed sort of weird ideas about how vaccines work and so on. It's unfortunate, but it's where we are. But being able to express the uncertainty and then being able to update things. Hey, I was wrong 2 weeks ago. Now that we have new information, here's a correction and so on. So these are things that professional people do when they're expressing certainty. An expression of certainty in reporting can often be verified with cross-checking against other reports and reference checks. A great example of this was the development and deployment cycle of the SARS-CoV-2 vaccine, which was a first attempt to mitigate the impact of COVID-19. We will touch we'll touch on this again in the parts that don't work in the next section. Many experts were involved, and many of them were commenting and explaining. I myself became a big fan of Microbe TV for this information. Microbe.tv, good website. Check it out. Not to mention JAMA, and I don't remember what that stands for, but it's a medical organization. They publish over papers and talks and so on, and a few other credible sources. So the first 2 points here are that there are subject matter experts and with background and information and access to information, and we can cross-check those and we can verify the things we hear against published information. We can note the differences because facts change and so on. So the first 2 points are a little bit dense. They're a little bit academic oriented. Somebody would have to be paying attention and take an active interest in verifying the certainty they are hearing to make sure that it's worth assigning credibility to. That is not always the case. The internets have made that transparency and update loop infinitely possible and highly visible. A newspaper may have printed a retraction back in the day, and that may have been sort of good enough. It may have gotten some attention. They may have updated an article in a following, maybe an article with a headline pointing out the existence of new information. So there'd be a series of articles trying to make sure everything's correct when details are changing. But today there are methods similar to what Wikipedia does with article edits showing the changes explicitly along with the editor and the time and the date. Publishing a YouTube or TikTok or a similar video can be done relatively easily, I guess. Is relatively easy. Can be done relatively easily. Adverb. To announce or update the information, you can push an update or a correction, and this will get out to people. These sorts of things tend to get picked up reasonably quickly if the various algorithms are mildly cooperative. In short, certainty is something we can spread and update rather easily and maybe with positive outcomes if more people can be, certain of the information they are receiving. So subject matter experts or people with a basis to be certain and transparency about the level of uncertainty at any given time, the ability to cross-check, so multiple resources that we can verify against, including reference materials and so on, and then proactively spreading, sharing, publishing adjustments to the certainty so that we become more certain and that we remove the items that were uncertain or that have become untrue, right? So as more information is available, you could very easily say, what time is it? And if I say the time, that is not the time 1 second later. Actually, it's not the time the moment I say it. But the fact is, things change. Things change. You cannot look at, he said the time was noon and now it's 12:10. Well, that's because that's how things work. So, and this is something that was lost on people during the pandemic, unfortunately. So what does not work? Well, unfortunately, judging a subject matter expert versus a popular online media personality, for example, is tricky, which can lead to credibility assignment based on popularity or other bases of comparison. The certainty coming from popular media figures as they express their views comes from, I don't know, who knows? Certainly not a scientific method or actual research, probably more anecdotal or opinionated. This is where a lot of bias comes in, confirmation bias and so on. These expressions of opinion are unlikely to be corrected when new information is available, if history is an indication. Ethics and responsibility don't always make for great ratings and huge returns on your YouTube channel or your contracts or whatever. It's unfortunate but true. Without any cross-checking, a consumer of certainty will generally accept the presentation as is, and despite the embarrassment of riches at our disposal when it comes to access to information, expertise, we come across far too many examples of a popular personality misleading an eager population, and then we hear the same errors repeated en masse. Where did you hear that from? I heard it from the guy, of course. And I'm getting this. This is one of the reasons I want to talk about this here, is that this Venezuelan boat situation, which, by the way, I mean, my opinion, we should not be blowing up boats without really good reason. At the time I'm recording this, the U.S. Coast Guard had sent a letter to Congress, to someone in Congress. It may have been Rand Paul, but someone in Congress, and it was the fact that between, I think it was October to October, 2024 to 2025, the U.S. Coast Guard had interdicted some in the small hundreds. I don't remember the detail at this moment, but it's something like, see, I'm being uncertain right now. I think it was like 200 or 220 or some number, not 1,000 and not 10. It was in the small hundreds. And it was 41% of the boats that were stopped and boarded and inspected and so on. 41% did not have contraband, and they are not clear about what the contraband is. But the take home is that 59% of the boats that they did stop were carrying something that they should not have been carrying towards the United States, borders, presumably. But the 41% rate was, hey, we stopped you. Oh, you're fine. Continue. And that does not include boats that were not stopped. And so it's possible that many more boats were not stopped that appeared to be fine. They were traveling with whatever plans that were published ahead of time, or whatever the case is. That's not really, it's hard to be certain about what the full story is. But the indication is that the Coast Guard stops boats, inspects them, and then sends them on their way if they're fine, and doesn't if they are not. So the question here is, why are we blowing up production by a street? If you heard that noise on the road noise, why are we blowing up boats and killing people extrajudicially when we don't have to do that? So that's a question in the air. And then, where do you go to cross-check this sort of thing? The algorithms and what we might call perverse incentives lead many content creators. It might be most. Think about it when you see older content recommended to you by any platform. I think it was yesterday I saw something on YouTube recommended, right? And I was like, oh, what is this? And it turned out to be from a year ago. So you have to actually look at those dates. And the date of the video publication is not necessarily the date of the events. So that's another thing to be careful about. And, so we as consumers need to be generally aware of these things. But they tend to leave old content creators, and thus platforms tend to leave older, possibly incorrect content published and available so that it might be continued to be viewed. People will continue to view it, and thus it can be monetized and make the content creator money. Certainty and certainly are hopefully being used consistently here. Certainty expressed then may be in need of updating. So if you watch an old video from a year ago, it may say some things that you say, that's not right, that's no longer true, etc. Yet, people don't always pay attention to that. So they may take what's said a year ago as whoa, that must be the case. This is the world we live in now. The same goes for the modern AI model races. So if you think about this, where training on the data is at a point in time when the data is available. And we cannot be entirely sure if the model we are chatting with is current or using information from a month or a year ago. How often do you hear people say, I asked ChatGPT? I'm hearing this way too often, more and more so, and wonder whether they have current information based on up-to-date training data or, well, does anyone ask this sort of question even? Usually not. They just ask I asked ChatGPT to do my taxes for me. Don't do that. What we might do about it. Actually, the more people use ChatGPT and find that it leads them astray or worse, probably the better, unfortunately. Yeah. So what we might do about it, like so many things we talk about here on the FFS Talk audio program, this is one of those human nature things. We get lazy and we believe that we believe what we are told. And if we hear that from a source we deem credible and we hear it from others, we presume it is correct, whatever that is. Certainty is assigned without verification. We need to change human nature so that we are less likely to accept certainty at face value, so to speak. This is given that there are often resources available against which to check claims that are offered with unverified certainty, and that all sounds great. But honestly, what really has to happen over time is that more and more people have to be negatively impacted by false certainty that they have accepted so that they will learn the hard way, I guess you could say. Changing human nature is really tricky, but if, humans have to be trained also, I suppose, just like AI. But if often enough, hey, I asked ChatGPT for the best price on something and it gave me the wrong information. And if that happens a lot, then the credibility of a chat program may or may not be valid on the future. So that was my notification of my phone. So I apologize for that. And okay. Second point, rational sources which present information with certainty and uncertainty made clear is one of the things we need. That is, people who indicate that they do what they do know and what they do not know based on information available and so on. This was that first point about subject matter experts and being transparent about their uncertainty levels. And these are the sorts of people that need to be amplified, or sources. Let's be just generic. It could be a paper or it could be a video from 10 years ago that actually is correct today. So time does not necessarily imply lack of certainty. And it fights against the easy availability of communication channels to huge populations that are incredible. Credibility appears to be much more of a popularity and confirmation issue in modern times. Confirmation bias, I should say. But there is a moral imperative to tackle here, that much is certain. So making people who are validly certain, is that a word? Is that a properly used term? I don't know. People who express certainty in their assertions and who do so credibly and based on reality, on information available, on their subject matter expertise and so on. These are people who should be amplified, who should be heard or seen more. Their assertion should be available for people to examine, to interrogate, if you like. But this doesn't tend to be the case. Popularity tends to win out, and popular opinions are not always certain. They express certainty, but they are not necessarily correct over time. But then nobody really talks about that eroding certainty as more information becomes available. So that's why everybody thinks ivermectin is so good. Finally, the great savior, AI, but not necessarily generative AI. That is, if models are trained on uncertain information, they will respond with answers based on uncertainty when asked questions. So many people use AI tools lately, and this may change, I don't know. AI tools could be used to capture various information sources and classify them. This is more of a machine learning thing, perhaps. And AI tools can be used to validate some claims against these classified data inputs. Not secret classified, but grouped into different categories and labeled and so on. So that's classification. The Grok AI bot on Twitter or whatever it's called now, attempts to do something like this, people can ask Grok, "Is this true?" And the bot will examine the communication thread, the conversation that is taking place, and it will try to do some research on whatever it knows at the time and so on, and respond. And I've seen a lot of examples where it's useful, and more examples where it's not quite right. Some of those examples are outright incorrect. They are as though a different conversation was the basis of the response. So there's occasional success, but with other problems. The Grok system itself is problematic. But then I think a lot of the AI platforms are, they're in a rush mode right now. They're at the ascending side of the Gartner hype curve. So we'll see what happens. Still, working on machine credibility and verification habits would be easier than changing human nature. So hopefully, yeah, I am very concerned about rampant certainty. It's too many, and again, the time, the clock, the watch, whatever it is, I think is a great example, because you can ask me the time and I will tell you exactly what the time is to the nearest millisecond if that information is available to me. And the moment you turn around, or the moment you step away, or the moment we stop talking, or whatever the case may be, the information I've given you is now incorrect. So your certainty about my certainty would hopefully prevail, and you'll say, "Oh wait, time has passed. What you just said is not correct anymore." But this sort of thinking does not apply to things like, "It's definitely a war crime." Oh wait, it turns out we're not at war, so there's a different set of rules that apply, and so technically it's this and a crime against humanity, maybe, who knows? But is it moral and ethical? That's a different consideration. Probably not. Is it legal? That's problematic. It remains to be seen whether the CIA was involved. I don't think they were, but there's President Ronald Reagan signed, I can't remember the order. There's an executive order that was signed that the CIA can do whatever they need to do. So they are, under U.S. law, they're authorized. And if that's still in place, that may be a consideration. But we don't know all these things. Who's involved, who's directly involved, which laws cover what. The terrorist designation, the narco-terrorist designation has some impact. So there's all kinds of factors floating around. So who knows? And everything I just said right now has some uncertainty in it, because I am not an expert and I don't track these things as closely as someone who is an expert or directly involved in these things does track them. I'm certainly not a lawyer. I'm certainly not at all familiar, really, at the end of the day, with UCMJ. So, but there's a lot of people who are talking into cameras, especially, and sometimes microphones only, but usually they're video content creators. They are quite certain, knowing nothing. And again, I really have to give kudos to Ryan Macbeth, because he starts out, I thought it was going to be, oh, all right, he's going to be at the, it's not a war crime because, but he actually was very reasonable in this case. And like I said, I don't necessarily agree with him every time, but it was a pretty grounded position that he described. And so yeah, not having all the information, I think, is one of the great problems that we all face now, because everybody is in the rush to get their content published so I can start monetizing. I need more views, I need more clicks, I need more likes, I need more, like and subscribe, all that silliness, which I believe is a perverse incentive to drive a rush to certainty, which will, get your audience on board and so on. And so it helps with your own credibility and so on. But is it responsible? And that's a problem to consider. That's where I'm going to leave it for today, certainly. And I hope this was interesting. I hope all of the episodes that I've produced thus far are interesting enough to maybe motivate someone to have conversations into 2026. So we'll see if we can get that going. Thanks for listening as always. And you have a great whatever day or weekend or holiday is coming up for you. Take care now.